Harry was second only to the Queen in popularity, but way before Meghan, before all of this. When Meghan arrived, they became a glamorous couple, superstars. We loved the wedding and all of that. They then went on, not their fault, to outshine William and Kate. Now, the whole process of monarchy and the institution means that it must go on. It must go on in the way it's proscribed. And they were in the way. Now, I understand that Harry and William had made a pact never to brief against each other. And it would appear that William broke that.
Or maybe William's, let's say, William and Kate's team started to try to shoot them down.
Yes.
And it went too far. I think you're exactly right about that. And that's of course, as you say, that maybe is just in the nature of things.
Yes, but the thing is, these are if they're brothers and they'd vowed this not to happen, to find yourself, as Harry might, to be not supported by his family, to be the complete opposite, to being pushed out, pushed away, and then finally to having seen what happened to his mother, wanting to protect his family, the family that he was creating, to leave.
And hasn't he, just based on what Nina said, Christo, hasn't he got every right to do all this? Because think about his poor mum, Diana, who he might well think was basically killed by the system. His brother William goes to work for the system and will one day run it. And Harry decides to do what Diana couldn't do, which is to escape and attack it from a distance.
Well, I agree that he could have done part one of that, which was escape. Every single right to leave, every single right to go and make a life in America. He has every single right, if he wants you to make documentary.
He and Meghan have been maliciously vilified over many years. And I think there comes a time when you have to say enough.
So he's on a virtuous mission.
Nina Myskow looked across that panel table and said Prince Harry was second only to the Queen in popularity after his wedding to Meghan, and the silence that followed? It didn't need a soundtrack. It was louder than any applause, any rebuttal, any smug counter-argument. That wasn't just a passing remark. It was a detonation. A moment where truth tore straight through the royal fog and laid bare a reality many in the British media had tried desperately to bury. Here was a veteran journalist, a media insider, refusing to play along with the fantasy. She didn't hedge her words. She didn't qualify them. She placed Harry on a pedestal not built by birthright, but by merit, emotion, connection. And the British establishment had no idea how to handle that. Because that kind of popularity, it doesn't come with palace permission slips. It comes from real people watching, listening, and feeling seen. And then, just when the air was thick enough to cut with a butter knife, Nina dropped the real bomb. She said, plainly, flatly, that Harry and Meghan were in the way of William becoming king. Pause on that. Let it stretch. Let the weight of it press down, because that one sentence, uncloaked and unapologetic, told the story no royal biographer wanted to tell and no palace aide wanted leaking into the press briefings. It wasn't the wedding. It wasn't the press. It wasn't even the tabloid-fueled feud. It was that Harry and Meghan's light was too bright, and it was casting shadows on the future monarch. They weren't disrupting the monarchy. They were eclipsing the heir. And to the firm, that was unforgivable. This wasn't about some minor disagreement behind palace walls or a supposed breach of etiquette. This was a full-blown existential crisis for the royal hierarchy. Because the monarchy, for all its pomp and tradition, is still a performance, and suddenly, two of its supporting cast members had become the main attraction. Harry and Meghan weren't outshining William and Kate by design. They weren't staging power grabs or orchestrating headlines. They were simply being seen, being human. And that humanity, raw, modern, emotional, was magnetic. While the palace was still trying to sell the idea of future kingship like it was a Boy Scout badge, Harry and Meghan were already connecting with the people the monarchy pretends to serve. And when Nina Myskow looked at William, she didn't see a leader. She saw entitlement, petulance. She said the quiet part out loud, that William didn't respond to competition with grace or innovation. He responded with sulking, with rigidity, with resentment. And that observation, coming from someone inside the media ecosystem, wasn't just a character critique. It was a signal that the media's favorite prince had flaws, and not the charming, relatable kind. For all the years spent grooming him as the stoic successor, the stable hand, the safe future of the crown, his public persona has remained flat, performative, hesitant. Nina's words peeled back the PR and revealed a man who was more invested in status than service, more consumed by control than compassion. And now we arrive at Meghan, the woman who, by merely existing within the royal family, disrupted centuries of predictability. She didn't need a crown. She didn't need royal blood. Her power was immediate, palpable, global. She resonated with people who had never seen themselves reflected in those palace walls. She stood for more than charity. She stood for justice. She didn't just cut ribbons, she cut through silence. Whether it was racial justice, female empowerment, mental health, or compassion in action, Meghan stepped into roles the rest of the family had only postured around. And that terrified the monarchy. Because once people saw what was possible, what real modern royalty could look like, the others began to look obsolete. Let's not skirt around it. Meghan was a revolution wrapped in elegance. She was intellect and instinct and international empathy in one woman. She didn't smile on cue, she meant it. She didn't shake hands to perform. She embraced to connect. And the press? They spun it, twisted it, punished her for it. Because that kind of authenticity doesn't play well with palace choreography. It couldn't be scripted, and worse, it couldn't be controlled. And in that contrast, Kate's silence became louder. Because, when Meghan's courage took center stage, when she read her speeches, addressed inequality, hugged victims of violence, it became painfully clear that the institution had always preferred its women seen and not heard. And Kate? She fit that mold perfectly. Nina Myskow didn't drag her. She didn't need to. The absence of commentary said more than words could. Kate has always been protected by the press, covered in velvet gloves. She's presented as perfect, demure, dutiful, domestic. But perfection is not impact. Silence is not leadership. Appearances are not activism. And when placed beside Meghan's record, the difference became so vast, the press had no choice but to attack Meghan to preserve the illusion of parity. This isn't a tabloid rivalry. This is a philosophical divide. One woman was molded into the monarchy, the other challenged it, and only one was punished. And let's peel back another layer, public affection. That elusive currency the royal family needs but cannot demand. You can choreograph tours, tailor speeches, and Photoshop smiles, but you can't fake love. And the love Harry and Meghan received, it was unfiltered. Crowds cried, children reached out, global leaders responded, and the British media couldn't stand it, because it wasn't meant for them. It didn't pass through their gates. It didn't ask for their approval. It happened organically, and it made their golden couple look bland in comparison. It made the heir and his wife look less like leaders and more like placeholders. Because what Nina Myskow highlighted above all was the fear at the monarchy's core irrelevance. She wasn't defending Harry and Meghan as victims, she was mourning them as missed opportunities. They weren't driven out because they were too weak. They left because the institution was too fragile, too unwilling to evolve, too obsessed with preserving hierarchy at the expense of humanity. And when that humanity threatened to steal the spotlight, the institution chose to dim it. And that's why the press turned on them so brutally. Because the crown doesn't just need obedience, it needs narrative control. When you start becoming more popular than the heir, that's not a blessing. That's a threat. That's a crack in the firmament. And rather than addressing the insecurity at the root of that fear, they fed it. They launched smear campaigns, fed Meghan to the wolves, and tried to paint Harry as unstable, all to restore the natural order. But it didn't work. Because Harry didn't buckle. He chose truth. He chose transparency. He chose his wife and his family over titles and trauma. And the public saw it. They saw the sincerity. They saw the pain. They saw a man choosing love over legacy. And in a country where the monarchy rests on illusion, that level of vulnerability was heresy. And yet, ironically, it made Harry more royal in the eyes of many than any ceremonial parade ever could. Meanwhile, William and Kate stayed put. They watched the world shift beneath their feet and clung harder to tradition. They were handed the modern era on a silver platter. Youth, visibility, access to platforms that could change hearts. And well, they chose safety over soul. They could have evolved, could have opened up, could have stood shoulder to shoulder with Harry and Meghan and transformed the monarchy into something bold, inclusive, empathetic. Instead, they chose silence, chose routine, chose to protect the crown from its own future. And now we circle back to the central question Nina left lingering in that studio: who is truly loved? Not by royalists, not by tabloids, but by the people, the mothers, the students, the activists, the ones watching from around the world. Who do they connect with? Who moves them? Who makes them feel seen? It isn't about thrones, it's about trust. Harry and Meghan didn't walk away from the royal family. They were pushed by an institution too brittle to bear their brilliance, and still, they built a new life, a meaningful life, a freer life. And that, honestly, was the ultimate revolution: to be happy without their approval, to be powerful without their permission. And William and Kate? Still standing, still waving, still trying to sell tradition as relevance. But tradition without connection is just ceremony. And as Nina Myskow made perfectly clear, in the court of public opinion, the only court that truly matters in a democracy, it's not the crown that commands love, it's the courage to be real. And in that realm, Harry and Meghan reign.